Hi, all. My name is Julia Archer, and I hope wherever you are in the world today, you are having the first, last, only, and best day of your life. I am a life coach for women of virtue. This means that I stand for humility against pride, generosity against greed, kindness against envy, patience against wrath, chastity against lust, temperance against gluttony, and diligence against sloth. Devoted to Extraordinary is the podcast that considers the essence of the spirit over the works of the ego and the balancing act that change as life's constant brings to your whole person. I know that everything in life is a relationship, and depending on what we make intimate or distant as priorities shift, it can be easy to slip. Ultimately, your thoughts, feelings, words, actions, and results make up who you are. Therefore, you are the constant to change because you are the embodiment of truth itself. I believe in the divinity of the human being. I believe in deepening my faith and cultivating fortitude, for God is greater and more powerful than us. I know that having a growth mindset is only the foundation of a fully lived life, and that it takes dare, courage, and might to triumph. I believe that it isn't about what we see, but about how we see things. I believe in curiosity, for it allows for radical self-honesty. The truth will set you free. Imagining beyond prior limitation returns us to childlike play, awe, and wonder, even an innocence of heart. Only this can lead us to heaven. I believe that the Trinity is a system, that God is the natural law that reigns forever, and that man's law depends upon, that Christ is everlasting truth and unconditional love, and that the Holy Spirit lives in every place where God and Christ are. Devoted to Extraordinary is the podcast where joy is the greatest rebellion. It brings you questions and systems to remain self-aware so that you may live in your highest frequency and become the person you were chosen to be. Here is another way to do so. Hi, everyone. Today I'm joined by Michelle Lalima, and we'll be discussing how symptoms are the messengers. So, Michelle, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. I am Michelle Lima. I'm a future homeopath, currently a homeschooling mom, and sort of an energetic way shower of sorts. It's just something that I've been studying for a really long time. And yeah, that's pretty much it right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just love the talk on vibrational medicine and how our bodies are really wise and know a lot more than we give them the credit. That's how our intuition speaks. And it's been a whole learning curve for me, understanding that the subconscious mind is, in fact, the entire physical body. So I would love to know how it is that you began discussing or your curiosity started on symptoms being the messengers.
Sure. So I think, like many women, my journey towards the truth probably began with my pregnancy with my daughter. Um, she was a very big surprise for my husband and I, but one we were excited about. And, after the initial excitement of, knowing we were going to have a baby together, the research started. And I really became hooked on this idea of having a midwife and a home birth. And it really is just a rabbit hole at that point, because you start to understand the cascade of intervention utilized in hospitals with birth. And pretty soon you're seeing this cascade of intervention in most medical care. And you can't look away at a certain point. And so my journey really started off, I think, very similar to most women's, where we try to look for natural alternatives to pharmaceutical chemicals, like instead of petroleum based, having plant based medicines. And I just want to start with the kind of caveat that I am not saying that these are bad things, or that they don't have their place, or that they haven't had an important place in history or in my learning at all. but that's where I started. And so pretty soon it became, oh, instead of taking this, I'm going to take an herb for this, or I'm going to have a supplement for this. And that was about, I would say I did that for at least 8 years. My daughter's 10. So I would say I had about 8 years of going the natural route. And it was beneficial. It was definitely like it was never enough, and it never actually dealt with the root cause. And so me just being the weirdo that I am, I grew really frustrated with what I was starting to realize was like a holistic narrative as well. So we have sort of the allopathic, you know, Western narrative of like, you are just a physical body and we are responding to these physical diagnosis, to a sort of, I kind of realized that like we were still just responding to the physical. We were using herbs or chiropractic. And so I pretty much dove into every single healing modality, and some of it was slightly helpful, and some of it did absolutely nothing, and some of it would be helpful for a very short period of time. And so this is over a span of, like I said, 8 years. um, and I kind of just considered myself to be very natural minded and crunchy. And I would make friends with other moms who, use breast milk for everything and aren't a good topically. And my daughter went to a Waldorf school, so it was easy to find other natural minded moms. So that's kind of where I started. But again, not really realizing I was still in that mentality of, diagnosis, take this for that. And it was still very much centered around the physical, and that was it, and not treating as a whole person. So
Yeah, I see that you said, it started with the interventions. And when we recognize that there is an intervention, there is some form of us that really still just wants to be the only one who's in the way, if you want to put it that way. We want to be the chain link to our son, our daughter, and not let the daughter be in between that, the doctor be in between that. So chain link of me, chain link of doctor, chain link of son or daughter, versus just me and my children. So there is a fullness to that and a responsibility that asks of us. And noticing, like you said, 8 years of doing everything that you did before coming round and round and round and seeing, actually, I've just been going in circles with the symptoms, and there has to be something deeper. There's a great responsibility, I think, emotionally and as a person that we grow into, to be able to see that we can address a deeper root issue. And then I wonder how it is that you then decided homeopathy was the thing to look at for the root of symptoms.
right. So I think I really truly fell into homeopathy, and I did it thinking it was just another energetic, or even, gosh, holistic practice, some sort of healing holistic practice that's, great in theory. And I didn't really dive into it. There was a mother at the school that my daughter went to who was studying to become a homeopath, and she was looking for, like, I think she was doing some clinicals, and she was looking for people to work with for constitutional care, which is different from acute care. Acute is kind of treating, like something temporary, like a cold or a flu or a rash or something like that. Whereas the constitutional care actually treats the whole picture. It's a little more complex It's about a 2 to 3 hour interview with somebody. It's a really big tell me your side of the story. And so her prices were really good because she was just starting out and she really needed the experience. And I had that first consult with her that was very long. And it's so funny looking back on it now because I know what I know about homeopathy and how much I was holding back. Because even when we go into medical settings, we kind of still want to paint this picture of ourselves as somebody who has it all together. And I've noticed a lot of people who go to naturopaths really like it takes severe breakdown to actually get themselves there, and then they can't not like tell the whole story. But even then I was resistant, even though everything was kind of breaking down on so many levels. And so she took the case, she gave me my remedy, she got it matched and worked with her supervisor, and we kind of just waited. And then in that process, we were starting to also treat my kids acutely when they were getting sick. And they got sick pretty often. And I was pretty mad because, I didn't vaccinate them and we technically ate clean. And there was like, I was just kind of like, what the heck is still going on? But now understanding it from a homeopathic perspective, I get it. Like I see that, first of all, their symptoms are not a problem. In fact, I'm starting to understand that people who don't get sick are actually just unable to. Their bodies are not creating that response that is sending that message. And so now it's really flipped itself on its head. And I'm grateful when those symptoms start to show up because they're telling me exactly what they need. So I forgot your original question. Did I answer it?
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm so ADD.
I really want to pinpoint something that you said, which is it's healthy to get sick. I think it's a wonderful thing to see it in that way. And when symptoms actually come up, to be grateful that it's happening when so many people just get even more annoyed. More than anything, because we don't understand it. Whereas you speak their language now, and you're showing us what the language of symptoms are. And there's nothing more beautiful than being able to understand in order to be understood, right? But yes, my initial question was, what put you on the road to homeopathy? And you did answer that.
Okay, good.
As the root of everything. And this all just makes me think again of the emotional side. Like you said, there's no real reason, that your kids should have been unhealthy. And yet it comes back to the emotions. Is that what you're kind of speaking on?
Sure, sure. And we're talking not just the emotional state of the child, but the emotional state of the mother during pregnancy, postpartum. And I actually believe too that, the legacy of our ancestors and past lives and what we have taken on and what lives deeply, deeply in the unconscious, that the subconscious is responding to and creating the life that we have. And so when those unconscious kind of unresolved, that shadow kind of lives down deep, even with babies, it's going to present itself. And that's what these symptoms are. And they're actually really exciting. My aunt actually died recently on Monday. And I remember, last time I saw her, like part of her decline was that there were no symptoms anymore. It was just she couldn't eat and she couldn't talk, and that was it. And it hit me on this just massive level that that's a pretty big sign that the body is shutting down and not working properly. And she was 98. I mean, it was her time. But she didn't have really any symptoms anymore. And it made me realize just how alive it makes us to have these symptoms that are so our bodies are just, God, they're so smart. We're so smart. Like God's design is just, I'm just in awe of it constantly, which is why I have to do homeopathy school. I have to learn all of this, is because it's just like our design is so, so perfect. And when we can be tuned into it, it's just really incredible. And it's just so backwards from what we're taught and what we're used to. It's just it's like upside down world, basically.
It is.
So
Wow, I just have chills on my entire body, like hearing the
same. Yeah.
that you said, she passed away 2 days ago. I am sorry to hear
Mhm.
that it was close, um, but that you found awe in a passing and in a losing of somebody, and in seeing that someone's alive although they're dying, because there's stopping of responses, which is ultimately what's happening when symptoms come up. They're dialoguing with our conscious brain, because it knows that we only speak in English, and if we can see a physical symptom, then we can turn it into English, because only when it's conscious can we fix it, right?
Right, right. And yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
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 This reminds me of some terms that I've also been a skeptic all my life. I've also loved being like into absolutely everything in terms of truth and healing. And something that I have lacked Google finds on when I've searched it is the term psychoneuroimmunology, right? Which
Mm, yeah.
practically this, the relationship between like the immunity, the endocrine system, and the nervous system is what it is formed as. So we're ultimately healing the holistic aspect of our physical body with our mental capacity to be the like vitality in the world, to be
Hmm.
our best. Um, yeah, I just love the concept of like our best is so far from the external world mental health, which is in fact very much linked to coping, versus like everyone who's on this natural and truth journey is seeking mental wealth all the time. They're seeking a thriving kind of state, that being with electrodes, like electromagnetic frequencies outside on computers and all these things in our environment, is what is constantly discharging our battery, if we put it that way. Um,
Hmm.
and so I am greatly interested in how the emotions affect our psyche and our physical. So how is it then, other than emotions, that because we lightly shared German New Medicine being, the symptoms as the messengers, neither of us being experts, but I would love to know for you, um, further than bridging the gap of the emotions, what brings that back to homeopathy? If you may have an example where it might have helped a situation, I would love to hear that.
Sure, sure. So mm, I feel like Samuel Hahnemann and Dr. Hammer would have been besties. um, so Samuel Hahnemann is the kind of godfather of homeopathy, and he was first and foremost a scientist. Like he would not, like you would never put him in the category of even psychology, much less emotional responses. However, as a scientist, he could not separate the emotions, which are a symptom, from the physical symptoms that occur, And so when he started his work, it was really during a time where, bloodletting was the way to heal people. I mean, medical intervention was deadly back then, as we know. And so with homeopathy, when you are gathering information for either constitutional or acute care, um, one of the biggest profiles that you want to look at as a homeopath is a person's emotional state. And often this has to do with the words that they're saying. So, for example, um, let's just say, okay, my daughter about 3 years ago was matched a pulsatilla state really well. And I knew this part of like the figuring this out was because she continued to say phrases like, don't leave. I really need you here. I don't want to be alone. So this is like a verbalization of an emotional state. that she was feeling, and pulsatilla matches perfectly with the words, "Don't leave me alone." Of course, there are other remedies who do as well, but you take that emotional and what is actually being verbalized, and then you match it to also the physical symptoms, and you have a pretty good picture of what it is that exists, plant, animal, or mineral, or no-sode, that sort of matches her state. And homeopathy is resonance. So it's like if you have a tuning fork of a certain sorry, it's early for me, a certain megahertz, isn't it? Like, so it's like 428 369, like you have like a certain resonance, right? And so if you hit the tuning fork with another tuning fork that does not match the resonance, nothing will happen. But if you hit the tuning fork with the same, which is like here's like, that's what homeopathy means, then it's going to awaken that resonance, and it's going to basically kind of put the key in the ignition of the body where that energy might be trapped, and just get it moving. Which is also extremely exciting because it's not the remedy itself that does the healing. It is actually your own body that is activated that does the healing. And so I hope that was a good example for you. I have several other ones. The emotional profile is part of the ability to match the remedy, which is a lot like German new medicine, in that you can generally trace back a certain event that triggered this adaptogenic response in the body. And I love German new medicine because it's so exciting, because by the time you're seeing the physical symptom, it's already resolved itself, which I'm like, so when you get homeopathy in there, it's just that little push forward to let the body, you know, just accomplish what it wants to. And it is fast. It is fast. Like my kid will have flu symptoms, and I'm just using flu for the sake. We always treat symptoms, not diagnosis, but I'm using flu as an example, but pretty extreme flu symptoms. And by the next day will be feeling like himself again. Like it is fast. I think especially in littles, and especially in pets, especially cats, they respond unbelievably well, because I think they're actually extremely energetic beings. Like I think kids are too, you know, when they haven't been told that they're not. So
yes, they were with God sooner than we were more recently.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It definitely is a great example, like you said, of the words that mirror her emotional state. And that in itself is such a conscious way of living. Like, okay, what is it that this person is saying to me? Where would our relationship be precarious, or what is it that they're needing from me? Or how has this one sentence been the illustration of a foreshadowed experience that we had, you know? Like a fear will come up, like, oh, don't abandon me again. And you're like, wait, you feel that I ever abandoned you? Like, why are you feeling this? You know, where did this come from? It's a very special thing to pay attention to the words that we're actually saying, instead of just sharing on automatic. So yeah, it all comes down to living consciously. Love the energetic resonance of homeopathy. Is there anything else that comes up with the concept for you of symptoms as messengers?
How insanely nefarious it is to ingrain in the brains of humans that you have to be afraid of them. That is probably one of the most difficult things I've witnessed in my personal life and my relationships is, and I don't know about you, but once I did start to understand symptoms are messengers and are in just unbelievable design, it was really hard to watch people who don't understand that yet. And it's just so wrong. It's so wrong for us to be disconnected from that knowing. of this perfect design. And I actually think, you know, it really causes a lot of the problems that we see today. And we certainly saw that the last 3 years of the fear of our bodies, the fear of each other, the fear of the air, um, and just the endless amount of fear and how much destruction that causes and how much destruction it causes for a person not to understand, not to know deeply that your body is always working for your survival. It is working so hard. Even things that you like, I've been overweight my whole life and wanted to kill it and get rid of it, you know, especially as a teenager, especially, you know, with the images of what beauty was. I wanted to just kill it and get rid of it. And how could my body betray me like this? Like, and when I started to understand that even fat accumulation in the cells, well, especially fat accumulation in the cells, has such a divine purpose for my protection and for my ability to thrive in this world. And then that's a whole other story too. But when medical science tried to intervene with that process, I had weight loss surgery and then had it reversed, and that's like a whole other story. But how upsetting it is to the body that something would try to come in and cut that off. And let me tell you, the body doesn't care. It's gonna find another way to talk to you, like kindly and lovingly, but it's gonna find a way to say, nope, nope, okay, we're gonna go over here then, you know. And it's such a humbling experience. I think it's such a I think it's so much proof of God's endless love for us that he's not gonna let us harm ourselves, you know. Anyways, yeah, it would just be like, it's worth understanding this just to let go of that manufactured fear, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
More than anything, what you're saying is that I understand when a symptom comes up, to see it as an invitation and an opportunity, and to say,
Yes.
like sit down, like, what does this mean? And invite
Yeah.
curiosity in that sense, and not deny something entirely. Because it's a bit like sadness versus happiness. We all want to feel happiness, but when sadness comes in, that's a bad feeling. You shouldn't feel that. But only the brain is saying what's good and bad. The body itself has to feel, and the body itself is constantly telling what is moving through. So ultimately, it's how we attach meaning to what comes up in our lives. And
Yeah.
it's always an invitation, and because it's stemming from love. So coming full circle back to what you said at the start with finding truth and searching for truth. Truth, we know the foundation of everything, and our design, according to God, is unconditional love. And that is what fear itself rests upon. So it's a beautiful scenario to say, actually, this is loving. Like a symptom, my reaction may be fear, but something in there feels wrong. Let me find the root of it. Let me see why it's come up, and let me address it. And so, yeah, homeopathy is a way to do that. I really appreciate you sharing and coming on.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, is there anywhere that people listening today could find you?
Yes. So currently, my website is down and under construction because I am going through a revamp and really taking my work from a homeopathy lens. And it's going to be a while because I got to get that certification so I can get all of that experience. But you can find me on Instagram at Michelle Lalima, MiChelleLalima, where I post things that generally annoy people. But I'm excited to talk about because I feel as though we have so much untapped potential as human beings, and really kind of tuning into these realities that we are energetic beings and that we have just this incredible creator. I feel like is important to talk about. So if you want to find me, you can find me over on Instagram right now.
It'll only repel those who don't listen. Your vibe is your tribe, and that's how I found you. And so,
Yeah, there you go. So true.
thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.